is August already, and I feel like I say that in every wrap up, but like the months are just getting away from me. It's just too fast. But anyway, I read a lot of really great books in June and July and didn't get a chance to share them with you yet, so I figured I would do that today. In June, I read a total of 3.5 books. I read Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. They were all fantastic. I'd like to do reviews for hopefully all of them, but at the moment I only have A Monster Calls as a full review right now. If you want to check it out, I'll leave that somewhere. Warm Bodies was the first book that I finished in June, and it was super funny and super quick. But what I didn't expect was that it would also be sort of philosophical in a way, and there would be some darker moments, and the villain was much more pronounced, because I saw the movie, and the movie is supposed to be a comedy, and so it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more ridiculous. This had a slightly darker tone to it, but it was still funny, and it was still really great, and I love the writing style, and I just love the whole idea of seeing from the zombies' perspective, because you just don't really see that very often. So really enjoyed this one, gave it 4 out of 5. The next book that I picked up was A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, which I had heard nothing but amazing things about. So I'm really glad that I finally picked it up, because it totally deserves all of the hype. You will probably cry reading this book. You probably will. But despite being sad, it is also just so lovely. The illustrations in this version are amazing. It's also just really beautifully written, and I don't even know how to describe it to you. Just go see my review if you want my full thoughts, but let's just say it was definitely a 5 out of 5. I would highly recommend it to everybody. Pretty much anybody 11 and up. The next book that I picked up was Good Omens by the late Terry Pratchett and his good friend Neil Gaiman, who, you know, you might have heard of before. Both of these authors are obviously very well known and fantastic, and I was just in the mood for a Gaiman book because A Monster Calls, it's not really very Gaiman-esque, but it's got sort of a similar vibe to some of his stuff, and so I was just very in the mood for something of that kind, so I picked this up. It was so funny. Oh my god, if you like British humor or just general wittiness in general, this book is essentially the two of them trying to make each other laugh, and it is glorious. The premise is basically that the apocalypse is coming, but you see from the perspective of this angel and this demon who are both trying to raise the Antichrist, and it's so funny. It's definitely a cult favorite for a lot of people. It's not the fastest paced book in the world, but it's so enjoyable. I highly recommend it to everybody. The next book I picked up was Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. It does glow in the dark, just so you know. I have finally confirmed that, which is so cool. I expected this to be a book lover's book, and it is. It totally celebrates books and bookstores, but at the same time, it actually takes place like right now. Like our day, like the characters use Twitter properly. I don't read a lot of contemporary, and I don't read a lot of contemporary that takes place right now, so that was just really refreshing. Like, it was nice to see characters using the same social media and technology that I do without the like condescending tone. You know what I mean? Like the youth of today doesn't know how to connect with one another. No, this celebrates the old and the new pretty equally, how they're both kind of doing the same thing. Like, it's passing on knowledge and it's connecting people, and both technologies do that. Yeah, it was pretty quick. It was a lot of fun. It was fairly funny as well, which was nice because I kind of wanted to keep up with that light, funny mood as I was reading, and I would definitely highly recommend it. I think I gave it either 4 or 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Next, we move on to what I read in July. Next, we move on to what I read in July, which was these. I have been meaning to read the second book in the Shades of London series for like at least a year, probably more than that, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. So finally, I just restarted the whole series. I read the first one and then the second one, and while I was waiting for the third one to come to me in the library, which is why I don't have it, I read The Martian by Andy Weir, then I read the third one in this series, and then on my Kindle I had read Ink by Amanda Sun while I was abroad. So I decided to continue with the series by reading the other 2 books in the trilogy, which were Rain and Storm. So that was both on here. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for July, so not too bad. So, first book I read was The Name of the Star by Maureen Johnson, which is the first book in the Shades of London, not trilogy, series. I thought it was a trilogy. I was wrong. But yeah, this book is so good. I've forgotten why I liked this series so much and why I wanted to continue with it, and so I'm really glad I started over because I love this book. I think this is the best one, in my opinion, of the series so far, but the other ones are really good as well. There's this Jack the Ripper impersonator. That's what the word I was looking for. Is a Jack the Ripper impersonator going around and killing people, and Rory is from Louisiana, just happens to be studying in England because her parents are doing a sabbatical over in the UK, and she gets involved somehow with everything that's going on in the whole investigation, and it's so much fun. It really is good at balancing the whole realistic boarding school relatable stuff and the paranormal stuff. After that, I continued on finally and read The Madness Underneath, which is the second book in the Shades of London series by Maureen Johnson. Again, obviously. This one, how do I even talk about this? Basically, not a lot actually happens in this book, but I still enjoyed it. It didn't quite do it for me the same way that the first one did, but it was still good, and obviously the thing that happens at the end, the infamous thing, freaked me out. I had to move on to the next one as quickly as possible. I don't know how anybody managed to wait however long it was between release dates of this one and the next one, because I couldn't even stand to wait like a week for the book to come into the library. I was freaking out. So yeah, it was pretty good. It wasn't amazing, but it was pretty good. And I was glad that I finally read it. And then while I was waiting for the third one to come into the library, I read a book that everyone's been talking about this past year, which is The Martian by Andy Weir. Basically, the main premise is that a guy gets left behind on Mars when him and his team were there on a mission, and there was this horrible storm. They thought he died, and he didn't die. It's his logs, like his both written and audio logs of his time there, and occasionally it goes back and forth between Earth and him. It was so good. I really didn't know what to expect, and it ended up being really funny. I thought it was gonna be scary. No, Mark Watney is just a total comedian. The way that he stays sane is by cracking jokes. Instead of focusing on like the doom and gloom all the time, he just makes all of these jokes, and I'm glad that it was just technical enough to be really interesting and very realistic, but not so technical that it went right over my head. That was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. If you were thinking of picking it up, I would do it soon because the movie is going to be coming out sometime, I think, in the next year. I don't actually know, but I'm definitely excited to see the movie. Wow, I just realized I totally forgot to talk about The Shadow Cabinet. So after finishing The Martian, I finally did read the third book in the Shades of London series. I think there are going to be 4 total, I'm not sure, but this is the last one that's out so far, and it was so intense. Like, there was so much that happens in The Shadow Cabinet. It all takes place in 2 days, 2 in-story days, and it's just so crazy. The paranormal aspect gets ramped up really high, and it's just totally bonkers. I loved the new villains, and it was just such a whirlwind. I still don't 100% know how I feel about it, but it was really interesting, and I'm definitely excited to see how everything gets wrapped up in the last one. I think I read it in practically one sitting. But anyway, back to past me with better lighting. And then finally, like I said, I continued on with the Paper Gods trilogy that started with Ink by Amanda Sun, and then went on to Rain by Amanda Sun, and then Storm by Amanda Sun. So those were both very quick reads. Storm is probably the best one for me because the main character, Katie, totally had her priorities straight. She is trying to do everything she can to save the world and save her love interest and, you know, figure out all the stuff with herself. She wants to know how she fits into everything. She takes charge a lot more, and she's really good about giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I really like that. So I think she developed a lot in the last book, and I enjoyed it. It was very quick, again, and it's one of those series that if you really like no loose ends and everyone's happy at the end, this is a good one for that. So yeah, I think overall the whole series only gets like a 2.5 stars for me, but it's a lot of fun. So if you like something melodramatic that ends really happy and has a lot of angst and paranormal romance, you'll like this series. So in total, I read 10 books in June and July combined, and they were pretty much all good, or at least all fun. Really glad that I had a great couple of reading months as far as the quality of the books. And I'm pretty excited because hopefully August will have a lot more books that I finish, simply because Booktubeathon is happening, which you probably just saw my video for that the other day. I just filmed that before this. That's pretty much all I got to say. So this has been a wrap-up video. My name is Jackie, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Today is August 2nd, which means Booktubeathon begins tonight at midnight. I am so excited.